I'm Lalo Dagach, and I am here with my co-host, Jen. She's an ex-Mormon and an ex-Muslim.
Yep.
Yeah, that's not a very impressive background, I gotta tell you. that's not something I'm gonna put on my resume. So you're starting off like really poorly. Already have like low expectations and low point of view of you.
Thanks. Great.
How do people react when you say that?
Most people are like, how could you be so stupid?
It sounds rude, but it's kind of accurate, right?
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot like to jump from Mormon to Muslim is not only bizarre and like takes a big leap of faith, let's say, but also it doesn't. I mean, you have to admit, it takes a lot of naivete or something.
I always say that word wrong.
It was a naivete.
Naivete, I think. I don't know. This is good. This is going to be recorded forever, and I'm going to look like an idiot.
Oh,
so
great!
I'm standing on the fence. I'm Switzerland. Sweden.
So let's start right off. Were you born a Mormon?
Yeah. My family goes back to the beginnings of the Mormon Church, to the second prophet, Brigham Young.
So you were born into a Mormon family.
Mm-hmm.
How religious were they?
My dad wasn't, because my dad really liked weed. He got super religious after my mom left. She left when I was like 8, and took off out of the country. But my grandfather was very, very conservative and religious. But it's kind of like with Mormons. There's not really you're either Mormon or you're not, and you either fit into the culture and the environment, and because you only hang around Mormons. Mormons are just they really keep themselves to themselves. So you kind of have to toe the line no matter what. So yeah, I guess.
Is weed a big no-no for the Mormons?
Yeah, you can't even drink coffee in the Mormon Church.
Oh, is that true?
That's a no-no.
No coffee?
Yeah, no tea, no coffee, no alcohol, no smoking, no rated R movies.
So your father was kind of religious?
Well, yeah, he went to church and he went to the temple, and he when you go to the temple, you receive your endowments and you get your funny magic underwear. And we went to church religiously every Sunday, and it's 3 hours of church, and then you have your visiting teaching and home teaching as well, which is where
what is visiting teaching and home teaching?
Mormons keep track of other Mormons and members, and what they do, it's kind of like a spying program, but it's under the guise of teaching each other. So you have like your home teachers, and they come into your house, and usually once a week or once a month or however you set it up, and they'll teach a lesson to your family, and usually it'll be like an elder male. The women visit the women, and the men visit the men, and it's more there so that they can report back to the bishopric if you're doing anything wrong. That's kind of like how it's set up, but it's called the Strengthening the Members Committee. And it's just, that's why I always say it was such an easy slide from the Mormon Church to Islam, because if anything, the Mormon Church controls your life more than Islam. In the Islamic countries, my life was controlled more, but in a Western country as a Muslim, I had more freedom than as a Mormon in a Western country, if that makes sense.
Well, because I think the theology of the religion itself and how it's structured, it's just the tightness of the community.
Absolutely.
I felt, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the main difference when people talk versus religion and cults. Like, I feel like cult has to be a very tight-knit community for it to be called a cult.
Well, any dissent is met with shunning too in a cult, and that's the way it is.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, you have to live around the people there. You have to go to school with those people, and exclusively those people.
Yeah.
Right. Then I feel like that's when we can qualify it as a cult. Like, for example, in Latin America, I wouldn't say Catholicism. People who are Catholic are in a cult because they can so loosely come and go as they please. While that in a cult, you can't really do that. So Mormonism is still like kind of it's big enough that it doesn't. You could still call it a religion and not a cult, but it still has those factors of just like the tight knit community that cults have.
Yeah.
Just like in Scientology as well.
But they actively teach shunning. They don't. It's another thing. It drives me crazy. The members of the Mormon Church will outright lie to non-Mormons, and the bishopric of the Mormon Church, the people that are in charge in Salt Lake City, like the prophet and his first and second counselors, and they have like the 12 apostles, and it's like the hierarchy, right? They will lie. It's just like Muslims. They with a straight face, they will just say, no, we're not this. But anyone that's a member and anyone that's part of the community knows that's a lie, and everyone accepts it. Like, I don't
We've talked about that a lot, that the way of speaking for religious people in their churches and outside to people who are not in their religion is extremely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, even in my experience as a person who's never been religious, I've been invited to churches from friends and family who talk to me about their religion. And then, in my life, I've occasionally have gone to different kinds of churches with a friend who wanted to invite me, or a family member, or a cousin who, like, oh, come to my church and this and that. And then you get in there and you hear the sermons, and then the stuff gets really off the wall, right? Because it's them speaking between each other.
It's a little scary.
Yeah. So
it's infuriating though, as a person that's been either an ex-member of the community or a member of the community at the time. It is infuriating to watch.
Why is it infuriating?
Because I know the truth, and it's infuriating that they could, with a straight face, tell everyone just a complete and utter falsehood and not feel bad about it. And it's disingenuous, it's dangerous, it's evil. I get so sick to my stomach when I watch it. I feel the way with the Muslims. I feel the way with the Mormons. It's just, I'm real big, obviously, I'm real big on being blunt and honest. I prefer having this open, free life where an uncomfortable truth rather than all those lies. But people are so comfortable with lies, and it upsets me.
How do you think that religious people in church, how do they self-justify lying to others outside of their church?
At least, I know when I was a Mormon, I felt like I had the truth. Well, I was told I was a Latter-day Saint, and we were the chosen people. And even in my patriarchal blessing, which is when you're come of age around 16, you go see the patriarch, and he gives you a blessing. It tells you your future. I don't know if a lot of people know about this. So I have a 3-page blessing where it tells me I'm going to live until the second coming, and I'm going to marry a dark-haired man, which was true. And I was going to have some children, but I was going to lose a lot of children, which was also true. But basically, it's like this patriarch that says a lot of bullshit, and his wife types it out after he's recorded it. And there's so much crazy. There's so much crazy. I don't even know.
Who chooses the patriarch?
The bishopric. Within the Mormon church, you have like your stake president. You have the president of the church, which is the prophet. And they believe that he actively speaks to God, like has a direct line to God, like telephone. When I was a kid, I was told he had a telephone to God. And then you have his first and second counselors, and then there's like the quorum of the 70. You've got the 12 apostles. They're all like old white guys in Salt Lake City running everything. And then it kind of trickles down to the local level, where you have like leaders of the ward houses, their stake centers, which is a building that houses smaller wards of people. And you go to church. Oh, you're not allowed to pick your church in the Mormon church either. You're assigned a church based on where you live. So they ensure that the people you go to church with are the people that you're going to be running to in the grocery store, that you're going to see at school, that you're going to live around as your neighbors. So everyone keeps, again, they're very insular, the community.
But
But that's who picks the patriarch. Pardon? Do
they choose where you live as well?
No. It's just the boundary lines for the wards are drawn by address. And you can't attend a different church. Like you're a member, you have a membership card, you pay your tithing to that particular ward. I mean, it goes to the coffers in Salt Lake City, but your bishop is the one that interviews you for everything, and like your tithing settlement at the end of the year to make sure you've paid your 10%, or your worthiness interviews. Like we had talked about, like when you're 12, you're interviewed about whether or not you masturbate or you have impure thoughts. So every 6 months you get interviewed privately with your bishop. So that it's again, it was an easy slide from the Mormon church to Islam because of things like that, like the worthiness interviews. Morality and staying pure is a big thing in the Mormon church. They actually told us from a very young age, better that you are dead than without your virtue.
And your virtue is obviously your virginity.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it always comes back to virginity, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dad told me he would rather me die.
Hymen is just gold for religious people.
It's just like to have your own father be like, I would rather you be dead than be raped.
I'd rather you be dead than be raped.
Yeah. Lose your life fighting for your virginity rather than come home unclean or without your virtue.
I could never imagine saying that to anyone, much less like a daughter. I would never say that to a person. And for a parent to say that to their daughter is just mind-boggling. But it really shows the emphasis they put on the magical hymen.
And my dad was a quote unquote moderate, not like my grandfather, who was very extreme and very conservative. My dad was still, he was born in, I think, 1935. He was in the movies in the 50s. Like we talked Rebel Without a Cause, just bits and bit parts and things. But he liked to smoke weed. He was a free spirit, but at the same time, he was a misogynist. I know that he beat up one of the women he was with. He beat me up on several occasions. He just out.
So were you a firm believer when you were young?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Without a doubt. So you were completely convinced of everything they say? You never had moments of doubt with you get baptized at the age of 8. It's the age of accountability in the Mormon church. And I did not get baptized at the age of 8 because my parents got divorced and it kind of delayed things. And then my best friend was killed in a car accident. It was the only time in my life up until I left the Mormon church that I was really started to question. And I was just a little kid at the time. But no. No.
Up until it's pretty much it. Just that one time I didn't want my dad to baptize me. And when I was 10, I got baptized. And I didn't believe that my dad was a good enough Mormon that my baptism was going to count. So that's how much I believed. And I didn't doubt.
Okay. So you didn't doubt. So at what point do you get the magic underwear?
When you go to the temple, either you go when you go on a mission, because it used to be the age of 21 for girls and 19 for boys to go on their 2-year mission. And so you have to go to the temple before that, and you receive what's called your endowments. And that's when you're given the underwear. You get pulled through the veil. That's a whole other...
What does that mean?
Yeah, well, there's a literal veil in the temple you get pulled through, where it's to symbolize your going from the this life into the afterlife. And there's 3 different kingdoms that you can go into. And so it's all symbolic. You have secret handshakes. You have to learn weird words like Peleal. I think nowadays, they took it out, but there used to be blood oaths where you would promise to slit your throat if you ever revealed the tokens and signs of the temple. And there's naked anointing with oil. So you're naked except for this, it's like a sheet that comes over you, but it's slit on both sides. And they anoint you with holy oil in your reproductive areas for, so you can have lots of babies, lots of sex, because that's a good thing, right?
You just said like 10 completely insane things that I don't even know where to start with.
It's so that's all the things that go on in the temple, and that's what you have to do before you even go out on your mission, and that's when you receive the crazy underwear and things. But yeah, I could talk for hours about the Mormon stuff.
There's a lot of crazy stuff in there, but you just get into, like you said, there was like secret handshakes.
Yes.
Right. Which is probably the least crazy thing you said there, but still, it's still just a little thing that, that it's such a kind of, it's almost cheesy in a way. And, it creates a certain exclusivity for the group. Mm-hmm. There seems like, from what you're telling me, there seems to be a lot of kind of symbolic.
It's very Masonic.
Yeah, for like traditions to kind of reinforce the idea of an exclusive group.
We're a special club. We're the elite chosen ones. And being white helps as well, because the most valiant people are with white skin.
And they were essentially like believed like black people were demonic or something like that before.
Yeah, they had the mark of Cain. They now deny that they ever taught that, but I was taught that growing up.
Oh, you were taught that?
Yeah.
What would they teach you?
Just that black people were impure in the pre-existence, because they believe that everyone existed in heaven with Heavenly Mother and Heavenly Father, and you're chosen. Your spirit is a body's chosen for your spirit, and you come down. And we fought a great battle with Satan in the pre-existence. So the ones that were less valiant, didn't fight as hard, had dark skin. And the Book of Mormon used to say that the more pious and good you were, in fancier language, that your skin becomes more white and delightsome. They actually taught Native Americans. The Mormon Church had a Native American placement program where they would take Native American kids and place them with Mormon households, like kind of like a foster program. It's real controversial, but they used to tell the Native American kids that their skin would become lighter if they, went to church and did as they were told. And this was up until the 80s.
Really?
Yeah.
Until the 80s, they were teaching this.
Because black people couldn't even be members until 78.
And now there are black members, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Why?
I know. I would always look at them and be like, why would you join this church? Because Brigham Young, my relative, said that if the races mix and have babies, they should be put to death. He didn't say that the church said that, but that was his own personal opinion. There was nothing worse or more of a sin than mixing of races. And but they deny it now. No, we were never racist. Never happened. Okay.
Until what age were you just full Mormon?
17. About 17. I married a Mormon when I was 17. And
you married a Mormon?
Yeah. We were married for a very short amount of time. The marriage wound up getting annulled, actually, because I found Islam. I left the Mormon church and my husband for, not even for a man at the time. I did convert for love, but I started studying Islam before I met the man.
Okay, how did that happen? How do you get to Islam?
My uncle, which I talked about, my Libyan uncle, was trying to get me to marry his nephew. And when I was younger, he used to tell me that, because I was back and forth between the UK and the US, and he used to say, I don't like you being raised in either country. I would like it if you were sent to Egypt to be raised like a proper Muslim girl. And I spent every summer with them. So I went to the mosque for different events and things, and celebrated things with them. So I was introduced to it, and it was a really romantic lifestyle to me. Because I was so used to being taken care of in the Mormon church. Like, women can't work. You're told, obviously women do work, but you're basically told that you can be a homemaker and nothing but a homemaker. And it really is going to make God sad if you try to do anything else. So I felt like this romantic idea of Islam and how I would be taken care of and not looked at for my looks and valued. I really thought I was going to be valued in Islam. It's crazy.
Did you not feel like the same equivalent of value in the Mormon church?
No.
I mean, what is the difference there? Because you would think that I can't. It's hard for me to see how one is measured as more valuing a woman than the other.
Well, in the Mormon church, which is the same as in Islam, but I was going into it. I was told that the man was the head of household. That my son, if I had one, and obviously I didn't at the time, but at the age of 12, he had more spiritual authority than I did. He was given the gift of the priesthood, which means he could give blessings. He could make decisions for the family. In the hierarchy, he was worth more in God's eyes than I was as a woman. And the polygamy thing, I had such a hard time because my grandfather was a practicing polygamist. And he was a fundamentalist, which is why I said my dad had left the fundamentalist lifestyle to go to the mainstream Mormon church. But so I hated polygamy. I hated everything about it. I argued about it all the time.
How do Mormons who are not polygamists feel about polygamy?
Well, now they say that it was, well, the reasoning for polygamy that they give is that there wasn't enough men because a lot of men died or they were sent on missions and didn't come back. So there was all these widows and they all needed someone to marry them, which is absolute garbage. They don't really like to talk about it or admit that they were polygamists. The fundamentalists, which is like at some point my family broke off with my great grandfather on one side. I don't know. It's confusing, but they do not admit that it was really ever practiced in large amount. I mean, they just admitted Joseph Smith had 33 wives. They just came out with this. Like, they never admitted that growing up. I went to all these classes and learned about Joseph Smith, but he had one wife, and that's what I was told my whole life. And then just recently, a couple years ago, they're like, oh, by the way, he had these 33 other wives. We're like,
but everyone
what?
else like historically knew that, right?
Yeah, but Mormons were told not to look, not to question, don't go online and look. Anything that you read is anti-Mormon propaganda, and they really drill that into you. They really pound it. So that.
But now the Mormon Church, like even within the church, they recognize he had that many wives.
Yes, and Brigham Young too, like over 100, I think was the total. But so you don't feel special. I felt special because I was a Latter-day Saint and I was going to be, I'm the chosen people. But as a woman, I didn't feel empowered or special. And Mormons are also very judgmental people. If you don't fit the physical characteristics of what they think you should fit, you're shunned. So I was a fat kid and I was shunned terribly for it and treated terribly for it. So I felt like I was always being judged based on the way I looked or what my accomplishments were, rather how pious or loving or kind I was. So it seems crazy looking back on it now, but I felt like Islam would focus more on my inside than my outside. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. But did you at the time see any negativity towards women in Islam at that moment?
No.
No.
Just that story, not without my daughter. That's what everyone would tell me. Read that book. But I thought that was just Iran, isolated incident. Men, they weren't all like that.
So you hadn't read the Quran, for example, at that time?
No, not really.
Yeah, so it's this kind of light reading or kind of hearing about Islam from others?
Yeah, somebody had gotten me a couple books of like hadiths. I had been, a nice sister had bought me a Quran. I can't remember which one it was, but I barely had started reading it. I started covering my head before I probably read the first 2 surahs of the Quran. That's how easily led I was.
Really?
Yeah.
So
I wanted it so bad, Lalo. I wanted it so bad.
What did you want so bad?
I wanted that life. I wanted to be a part of that. It was romantic and it was different and it was this I wanted to fit in. I wanted to have an identity and a culture, because I being from 2 different countries and living in 2 different places, I never felt like I had an identity or a culture, and just a white person. I'm a mutt, a mixture of all different things. So I kind of have the Scottish culture, but at the same time, I very much just West Coast, LA kind of identity. But I longed to have that. I was so jealous of like Italians that had the Italian family back home. I wanted that so badly, and Islam kind of filled that hole, I think.
So you felt kind of jealous of people who had a strong like
cultural identity
in their background that wasn't just American white.
Oh yeah.
At the end, right?
Yeah,
you don't really get that with a lot of people who are like, well, I'm a mix of like Scottish and British and German, but like have no family back there, and it's like they're just white and American, basically.
Yeah, but for me, that Mormons are also very distrusting of the American government. It's bred into us. I know it seems counterintuitive because a lot of the FBI recruits from the Mormon Church and like BYU and stuff, but the mistrust of government.
Wait, the FBI recruits from the Mormon Church?
Oh yeah, from they recruit missionaries that have come home because they're groomed to take orders and to do as they're told. That's what Mormons do. You take orders.
Once you said that, that makes sense.
Yeah, they make good police officers. They make good military, service members. They make good FBI workers or whatever they call the FBI people.
Agents.
But yes, thank you, agents. The big words that are hard for me.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like you have a person who's just taught to follow orders and kind of be clean cut and ethical. And yeah,
I belong to a church that believed that Jesus came to the United States and the Book of Mormon was buried in a hill in New York on golden plates. And that was our Bible. It was very just American centric, I guess. So I missed the Scottish identity or the British identity that I had. I kind of tried to throw away because I was embarrassed. I wanted to just be American, and then all of a sudden that wasn't enough. And it doesn't make any sense looking back. I was a crazy young person who came from a broken home. I brought this up earlier today when I was talking to Introverted Smiles. Most converts, I think, have daddy issues and come from broken, at least the girls. They don't come from good homes. And I came from a very abusive, broken home.
So you're saying that white girls who go into Islam do it for the same reasons as white girls go into porn?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Minus the pole.
So you either do porn or do drugs,
become a Muslim.
Or become a Muslim. I'd be fascinated to know if there was one that did all three. That makes kind of sense because you're bringing like a certain kind of order to your life.
Yeah.
Right.
I did better. I accomplished more when I was a full-fledged Muslim, and I get accused all the time. You weren't a real Muslim. You're just a convert. It doesn't mean anything. You didn't really practice Islam. I not only practiced Islam, but I delved right into it head first and really genuinely bought into it. I genuinely believed it. And that's why I covered my head. I went from casually wearing a scarf to going to full hijab to niqab. Getting more and more conservative.
You did full niqab?
Yeah, for 2 years.
Wow. How was that experience?
Really annoying, really hot. I got treated.
Did you feel empowered?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
I mean, that's interesting. You hear that, but how was the feeling of empowerment with being in the niqab?
I believed and felt that I was only judged solely on the words that came out of my mouth. And I didn't have to worry about feeling, you're taught that a man or any kind of lustful look at you or allowing yourself to be gazed upon makes you less worthy and dirty, you yourself. So I felt like I was safer. I was revered. I was more of a princess because I was like a hidden gem, and only the chosen people are allowed to see the hidden gem. So just my husband and my children and the women, but not even the male family members, not cousins, not my father-in-law, I never met him. He passed away. But like the other uncles that took the place of the father, they could never see me without hijab or the niqab. So I just felt like it made me feel more special, basically.
There's obviously a basic problem with the idea that the niqab or the burqa or any kind of veiling, is covering you as kind of this gem, this special entity below it. That to begin with, a problem there is that you're already telling yourself you're kind of a gem, right? You're already kind of in the mindset that you're special and that you're something special to look at, right? So it's like, oh, I'm protecting my greatness, right? So there's already a level of narcissism there. And another thing is that you also think you're not being judged because you're covered, but there's a basic also problem that a person, if they wore like a clown mask everywhere, they could say, well, I'm not being judged on my looks. That's true. Now I'm judging you as a person who's wearing a clown mask, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that also applies, not that they're wearing a clown mask, but at the same time, you're a person who has decided to cover up their face. Now, I don't know what you look like, so I can't judge you on the way you look, but I am judging the fact that you're covering your face, which is already like, it has its own problems in itself, that you decided not to interact with me face to face, or that you decide to cover, or that, and for any reason, it seems very bizarre. It's like, if you say you're doing it because you feel your looks are special, okay, that doesn't come off well to me, right? Or that I just want to be judged on what I'm saying. It's like, well, I can judge what you're saying and look at you at the same time. It's like to assume that people are incapable of judging you on what you're saying because they can see your face is also kind of condescending to the rest of the world.
Oh yeah, but you deal with that by dehumanizing the people that you think may be judging you. Because when I would go into the non-Muslim areas, because you pretty much only shop at the halal places and the same streets. Like there's like an area, like say Scotland, there's Allison Street in Glasgow, where it's mainly just like the halal meat markets and the shops where you get your material for your shawarma kameez and things like that. When you go outside of that comfort zone and you deal with people that would look at you differently because you have your face covered, then you dehumanize them. They're a non-believer. They're dirty. They're going to hell. It doesn't matter what they think. So that, of course, Satan's gotten into them and made them think that this is silly. So basically, you have bad thoughts about everybody. If you feel like you're being judged, and so that's kind of how you justify it, because what would they know?
But I mean, how would you react to me if I told you, Jen, like, I've decided to start covering my face everywhere because I don't want people judging me on my looks only? Like, you'd probably just laugh at me, right?
I would either that or book a psychiatrist.
Right, yeah. I mean, the same thing applies really to anyone, right? It's not particular to women or men in that sense. But so at what point did you do the shahada?
Yeah, I took the shahada.
Did you do that before you met the person you would later marry?
No, I took that. I took the official shahada like 2 weeks before we got married.
Mm-hmm.
But I had already been going to the masjid like every Friday for about a year.
Can I ask how you met the person you
online?
Online. Then did you actively look for a Muslim husband, or was it just by accident?
It was by accident. It was for university students, and he was at uni in the same area as me, and we lived close enough that we could meet each other. So, but we talked for almost a year before we actually met.
Okay.
And then I took the shahada and we got married.
And okay, but what happened with your family? Did you do it in private? Did they know about this person before you got married?
They did. I did inform them that what was going on, but as stubborn as I am, I tend to just do things and consequences be damned. So I announced it, and everyone was in the US at the time. So I left from the US to go back to the UK, because not everyone, but like my parents had come back to the US for a short amount of time. So I said I'm leaving, and I got on a plane, I think the next day, and went back and got married. So they weren't there. They weren't invited because they weren't Muslim, and I wasn't going to have non-Muslims at my wedding. They couldn't come to the mosque.
What? So it's not that they didn't want to go.
They didn't even know.
But so there's like probably two things there. Like, one, they probably wouldn't go if they were invited, right?
Absolutely not, because they're Mormons. They won't know. They would have really.
And even if they wanted to go, they wouldn't be able to come because they're not Muslim.
Well, no, they could have gone to the mosque, to the actual nikah, because you have the walima and nikah, so they could have been to part of it, but not all of it. I just didn't want them there.
Now, what is the walima and the nikah?
Well, the nikah is the actual like ceremony, where you just like have your it's you say, yeah, we marry each other. There's no aisle to walk down or anything. You just go before the imam, and they are I had to have a representative speak for me. It's not technically the way it's supposed to happen if you've been married before, but one of the family friends basically spoke on my behalf and arranged the contract and everything for the marriage, and did the dowry, because there had to be a dowry. And I gave $1,500, and no, he gave me $1,500. I gave him a Quran. I think that's how we did it.
Mm-hmm.
But the walima is the banquet, the wedding party, and it can go anywhere from 1 day to 3 days.
And let's say a non-Muslim can attend the walima?
Yeah, they could have gone to the actual nikah, but it would have been, they were a Sunni sect, but I don't know. They were very, very extreme. They're the people that they hung around with, and the actual like mosque that they went to that I got married at was a very extreme mosque, and it would have been frowned upon highly had I tried to bring them. But I didn't. It's
kind of funny because when you have bigotry on both sides, everything kind of works out. Because like,
right?
Well, like I don't want you around me. Well, that's great because I don't want you around me either. So we're good. So it's like kind of like, it's only when one side is bigoted that you have a problem. When both sides just don't want each other around the other, then it's all fine and dandy. Right? Yep. You stay over there, I'll stay over here.
It works out. Poor me in the middle, though.
Right. So you were that's the problem. You were transferring over, and that's kind of a weird thing because you have family on the other side. But was there any disdain on the side of the husband?
His family? For my family and for me.
Or for marrying a convert, a white woman, a Western?
Up until 10 minutes before the nikah, his mom was trying to talk him out of it.
Okay.
They were not happy.
But were the men on his side of the family at least happy? He's like, oh, he's marrying a white woman or something?
At first, yeah, because a couple of the men in his family had married white converts, and they all were very, I don't want to sound horrible, unattractive.
Okay.
And not very intelligent. So they were easily controlled. And I was not easily controlled. I gave in, but I gave in with a fight. So the men told my ex that they felt sorry for him because I had so much fire in me. It was basically what they said. She's too strong-willed.
Okay. And
so she has a mind. Like, that's terrible.
But so at first it was okay because like you were a white convert, which is appealing. But the fact that you kind of were outspoken instead of for yourself, they didn't like that part.
Yeah, and I asked questions, and that's always bad.
Too many questions.
Mm-hmm.
Women.
I want it to be explained to me.
Yeah, women asking questions, it's always a problem.
Yeah, it is. But if you tell me that I have to do something a certain way, I want to know why. And telling me that because the Quran says that isn't good enough. Show me where in the Quran it says that, or where in the Hadith, or who I'm supposed to be emulating to do whatever it is I'm supposed to do. So it just, I asked too many questions.
Okay, so from there, what happened? You're now married to a Muslim, having left the Mormon church. And you're at what age right now? Like 20, you said?
I was 18, like 18.
18, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, you're really young.
Yeah, I was very young. I lived with his family in the UK at first. I moved in with them because he's the youngest son, and the sons always stay with the family.
Was he about the same age as you?
No, he was 27.
27. You're 18. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we lived with them. He was finishing up his master's, so I didn't take a job. He wouldn't let me work. I wanted to work. I remember I tried to get a 6-month temporary position at a recruiter's, and he didn't want me to do it. But eventually I won, and I was able to work a little bit, and then it helped speed up his master's. And then we moved because he got a job in London. So we left his family home and went to Ealing, which is a very it's an area where there's a lot of Muslims. And then we went from Ealing to Essex. But in between then, after we went to Ealing, that was my first trip to Pakistan, and then in India. And we stayed there for a while. But we moved a lot. We probably moved every 6 months.
Mm-hmm. And
so we never settled.
And how was it during that time? Were you happy? Did you feel like you were like, because you said you'd be kind of gravitated towards Islam and became interested because you wanted an identity, a sense of culture. Did you get that?
Yeah, at first, yeah. It was really hard. The sliding into Islam was hard, but actually like learning everything I needed to learn and adapting, it was really cool at first. And I felt welcome by a lot of people. There was a lot of people that were horrible to me and treated me terribly and didn't want anything to do with me. But there was a lot of really great people. So it didn't start getting. Was
it mostly the women who were nasty?
Yes. The women are terrible.
I mean, we talked about this in the last episode, right? That how women are particularly misogynistic towards other women.
Yeah, they are the worst. The men are always, a wink and a, women are women. They just kind of shake their head and just
so kind of talking down to you, but the nastiness really came from the women.
Yeah, the worst things. I mean, even just my ex-mother-in-law not speaking to me for 6 months because I put the Quran on the floor, not knowing that it wasn't okay. That I was scared and alone. And I didn't have any family near me. I didn't have any friends. I was trying to make a new life, and nobody eased me into it. Nobody was nice about it. Like I said, some people were nice to me, but it was people that the family didn't know that I met at the mosque that became my surrogate family that were nice to me, and taught me about Islam and taught me how beautiful Islam I thought at the time could be. It was a couple years before things started getting slowly, like she would say things about America or about the UK and about how it was, I mentioned, little comments about it was good that so-and-so died, or it was good that this terrorist activity went off. And I didn't pick up on it right away. It was slow. Like the Jews are responsible for everything. It was much worse when I was in Pakistan and in Doha too. It was really bad because his mom's a psychiatrist. She was a psychiatrist in Doha, and so she was between Doha and the UK. So we went back and forth, and it was always worse. I was always treated worse in the UK and in Pakistan than in the Middle East by the women.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, by the women.
Yeah.
Why was that?
I don't know. It seemed like in the Middle East, even like going on Hajj and everything, the women were much more accepting of a white convert than in the Asian areas. I never went to Bangladesh. We went to Afghanistan because his mom has family there, right past the border between. I don't even know. We went from. We went from Pakistan to Afghanistan and then back. I'm trying to think.
I mean, you don't have to be specific to certain places.
No, I was just trying to remember if we flew or not. I don't think we did. But it was always worse. You
spend in Afghanistan?
I was only there for a month.
Mm-hmm. With the family of
yeah.
Of your
just visiting.
Uh-huh.
Oh, the food was amazing.
Oh, the food is great.
It's so good.
Well, that's good
so much better than Pakistan. Pakistan's food is good.
Pakistan food is not great.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all right.
I feel like you're just saying that now because, like, I don't want to get the Pakistanis angry.
I can make everything. Like, I know how to cook everything, but it doesn't mean I liked everything.
Okay.
But yeah, I felt like the women were always better. They treated converts. I talked about that group of wives of Muslim husbands, all these ladies that had married Muslim guys, and how they kind of said the same thing. A lot of them being in the UK, there's a lot of the Pakistani Indian kind of Bangladeshi, the men that the women, there's not a whole lot of Middle Eastern dudes there. You know what I mean? So they had the same kind of, the ones that were with men from the Middle East had a better time with their mothers-in-law even. Not great, not wonderful, but better. So it just anecdotally, just from the different, dealing with so many different relationships and women through the years and seeing how they've turned out, I really do think that they deal with converts a little bit better as far as the women go in the Middle East.
So what else happened while you were in the UK living there? Were you just indoors and then would just go to mosque?
Well, I could go out and do things. He didn't really control, as long as I stayed within, a few miles of home. I could go do whatever.
At this time, were you in hijab or niqab?
Yeah, I was in hijab. I didn't wear niqab till the last couple years.
How did you feel around walking around in a hijab? How was that feeling?
Again, if I was in the heavily Muslim areas, it was fine, and I felt proud. I felt very proud to show off my religion, and I believed that it was my choice, even though it wasn't. I told myself it was my choice. What
do you mean it wasn't your choice?
Well, I was not allowed, and I was told in no uncertain terms that I was allowed to go out without a hijab on. Now, I could have done it anyway, but I would have gotten the crap beat out of me for it. So I didn't have a choice. But I told myself it's what Allah commanded, and that's what I was supposed to do. So I convinced myself that I wanted to do it.
So it's kind of interesting what you're saying. You're saying that there is a level of choice, but at the same time, there isn't. So it's not exactly untrue when Muslim women say it's a choice. That could be true, but that doesn't mean that if they took it off, there wouldn't be consequences from their family and their parents and the men in the family and their community.
Yeah, because there's no religious police not official religious police in the UK. There are religious police, but it's not a law. You're not going to get in trouble. You're not going to risk getting hurt because you're not wearing hijab. But so it is a choice, but you don't really have a choice. So yeah, you in your community, in your relationship with your parents, people will talk. If you go out without your hijab, you're going to be shunned and a pariah, and they're going to say that you're loose. So you won't be able to find someone to marry. Say if you're looking, I mean, you have to present yourself a certain way because marriages are handled completely differently than normal marriages.
You were also saying that your mother-in-law would say certain things about supportive of certain terrorist acts when they happened, or speaking very bad, like a lot of anti-Semitism, those kind of things. Would you feel also when you heard those kind of things, the attitude of how Muslims would talk indoors and say that kind of thing, and then outdoors around others was totally different?
Oh, I would watch her. I never equated. My uncle was a good man, and like his and my other uncle that my auntie married, they were good men, and they died young, but I loved them, and I loved their families, and but I wasn't introduced to the whole idea of, I never heard the things he said about Islam. I don't know if he lied to people about what Islam really was. I know he talked to me about it, but with my being introduced to my ex's family and friends, it was the first time I'd ever really come across saying one thing behind closed doors, and then because she was a doctor, there was a lot of people, white people, non-Muslims, that would come to our house, or we would go to functions where she was being given an award or something was going on. And there would be a lot of times when she would get into conversations about things, and she just say, for example, about wearing hijab, because it says that in one part of the Quran, it says, to rip the bottom of your skirts and draw them up over your bosoms. It doesn't say anything about, or in hadith, it doesn't say anything about actually having to cover your face. But to me, behind closed doors, she would say, well, these are the reasons why, and this is where in the Quran and Hadith where it says that you have to do these things, and to say that it's a compulsion, I absolutely have to do it. But then in the same breath, not 2 hours later out at an event, she was telling a white woman that, you know, there is no compulsion, that you don't have to do it, that it doesn't say anywhere in the Quran or Hadith that you have to do it. And that it's the women choose to do it because it's a cultural thing and because they're revered. It's the same thing. I want to be their princesses. But it was so disingenuous, and it was so, I'd never seen that before. And I didn't understand if it was such an amazing, peaceful religion and it was so great and it gave women all these rights, and why lie about it?
Well, what do you think the logic was going on in the head there of people who do that kind of thing, who say one thing indoors and then outdoors to, you know, the kuffar, as we were called, like what is the logic in their heads? Is it justifiable to them to do that, even religiously, or is it embarrassment of like what their religion really says? Is it that they're what is that?
No, it's justified in the religion, in not just in times of war. To non-Muslims to lie about Islam, it's actually encouraged to even trick people into believing in Islam or to being a Muslim, because once you're a Muslim, you can't leave Islam. You know that the punishment is death. So once you've said I'm a Muslim and you live in an Islamic country, even if they tricked you into it, that's too bad. You're a Muslim now. So they will say that, you know, you can drink, as say a man wants to drink, and they say, well, yeah, you can be a Muslim, you can drink. And then as soon as he says he's a Muslim, you can't drink in Islam, sorry. So I guess you're gonna have to stay a Muslim, you can't drink anymore. And he doesn't have a choice. So I think they do it because they think they know better. And again, it's kind of dehumanizing the non-believer in a way that they're patting them on the head. They don't know any better because shaitan's in them, and they're dirty and evil, and they need to be tricked, or they need to be told a different story. Does that make sense?
I don't know why, but that is kind of surprising in a sense that they think that their religion is so superior and it's so chosen and they're so in the right. If they really thought that, why don't they express it so more explicitly?
Yeah.
Why even try to hide it?
Agreed. That's again, that was one thing that little things over time, you know, you kind of just like, that's interesting. I wasn't able to put the same lens on the Mormon church that I did with Islam until later.
Did that happen, for example, with Mormons? You felt that this kind of double speak with people outside the church?
Well, yeah, they're even doing it now with the that the new anti-gay doctrine that just came out in November. They're saying that it's not anti-gay, but every child that's a child of a gay person cannot be a member of the church. And basically they're saying that they would rather them be dead than acting on a lust of the flesh, which would be being homosexual. It's just something you have to get over. It's not natural. It's not normal. Just get over it. You know, just so they say that to the members, but then when anyone else asks them about it, they say that's not what they're saying. That's not what they're teaching. That's not what they believe. It's out of love. They want gays to die out of love. So, but they don't really say that they want them to die, but everything that they say, it's supposed to be, you know, out of love. And it's a lie. It's an outright lie. So I didn't notice it with the Mormons until after I had left Islam, left my ex, left that whole environment, and came to the U.S.
It's kind of, I feel like religions and groups like Mormons or Scientologists or Jehovah's Witnesses, a lot of evangelical groups, I feel like those are very good examples of, especially when in churches or groups that are very extreme in their beliefs, they're very good examples of showing that people can be extremely religious, very, very disastrous, misogynistic, tribal beliefs. And there is no explanation there that you could say that, well, it's actually not because of the religion, it's because of American interventionism, drones dropping bombs on cities and poverty. It's like, I've seen so many extreme Christian groups and extreme Christian churches and all other kinds of religions as well, that have absolutely none of those qualities to them whatsoever. And the people who make these excuses for Islam and Muslims will totally agree with me. They'll say, yeah, obviously, in that case, it has nothing to do with American interventionism.
Right.
Yes, it has nothing to do with dropping bombs or war. Absolutely not. Well, this is a product of 1,000 years of crusades. No, they will say, obviously, that has nothing to do with it. It's like a lot of these places, these people are not necessarily poor. They're either middle class or sometimes upper middle class. So it's not probably it'll be, oh yeah, of course, that's true too. But then they'll go to Islam and it's like, oh no, it actually has nothing to do with the religion. Actually, the more extreme you get, the less it has to do with the religion and more it has to do with these other qualities. They'll make these assertions just in the case of Islam for some reason.
Does it make any sense? It makes no sense to me. The blinders are on and I don't understand it. It makes me want to pound my head against the wall, but it is, I keep saying this, it is so dangerous. It's so condescending. It's harmful to people that have been through it, to ex-Muslims, to Muslims that need reform. They need change. They need people speaking out to say, where is the moderation in all of this? It's too extreme. But at its very core, Islam is built on violence at its very, very core. So you can't be surprised when that's where it goes. Its inevitable ending is, and that's what they want. They want Sharia across the world. That is the goal of Islam, and they believe with inshallah that it will be taking over the entire world.
But that, and it's a funny thing. It's like a lot of every single extremist religious group I was just talking about, whether it be the evangelicals or Scientologists or Jehovah's Witnesses, they say the exact same thing about it spreading and it being, their religion spreading to 100% the entire world.
That is
right?
true.
And it's very similar. But then again, if I was making excuses for Scientology or evangelicalism, right? If I was making these same excuses, these same people who are apologists for Islam, they would tell me, "Oh, you're making excuses." It's like obviously, like nothing is going to change with Scientology if you keep making excuses from Scientology. And if I said the misogyny and the racism in Mormonism, right, it has nothing to do with the religion. Somebody like the same people would tell me, "You're just making excuses. Nothing is going to change if you keep making these excuses." Obviously, it has something to do with the religion. It's mainly the religion, if not entirely the religion. But then I'll say that, oh, well, yeah, that's true for Islam. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, actually not. Actually, then it has nothing to do with it.
Can you imagine them saying something like, if you speak out against Mormons, the more you speak out against them, the more violent they'll become? I mean, the people you should be listening to are the ex-Muslims. Those are the people you should be listening to.
I mean, they're not the only ones who should be listened to, obviously, but they are great people to listen to.
Yeah, obviously the learned people that the scholars and there's a lot of really important people to listen to, but I just find a lot of times ex-Muslims are not listened to.
But let's go back to to your experience with this. So you were in England and then you traveled to Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Mm-hmm. And well, yeah, every 6 months we moved. So we went from the UK to Pakistan to Doha back to the UK, just everywhere.
So let's also backtrack a little bit to the fact that you're an ex-Mormon and an ex-Muslim. So when you became a Muslim, you were officially an ex-Mormon already.
No.
Okay. No. Why?
I did not. To be officially an ex-Mormon, you have to write into the church and get your resignation papers. I did not do that until just a few years ago. Okay. I also snuck in Mormon. I tried to get my ex to go to the Mormon church with me at the same time. I don't know how I managed to do this, but at some point, I had us very involved in Islam and with the Mormon church, not as being a Mormon, but I argued it that I was needing an injection of American culture in my life. And, the Mormon church he felt more comfortable with because the men were religious men and pious, and he trusted them. He shouldn't have because of what happened in the end. But so I was allowed to hang around with the Mormons, and he actually kind of encouraged it a little bit. So I didn't get kicked out of the Mormon church for becoming a Muslim. Most people would, but I didn't, because I'm adorable or something. And then I when I left Islam, I went back to the Mormon church, and I heavily attended. And
wait, so you became a Mormon again after being Muslim?
Well, yeah, because I do. Yeah. I went back to my birth religion.
The weird thing, Jen, is that to me you come off as such an intelligent person for all the time we've spoken, and it's just you say this and it's just I can't imagine what's going on in your head at that time. But okay, so let's say not whether unofficially or by register of the Mormon Church. What I'm more interested in is like when you became a Muslim. Did you lose all belief in Mormonism and you fully believed in Islam?
Yeah.
In your head, you could see it. Like, I don't believe everything that was written about Mormonism is a falsehood. And everything about Islam is true. Yeah. That's like, you were totally in that mentality.
Absolutely.
And then you left Islam. Why?
Well, it was leaving. Well, the situation, like with my kids being taken to Pakistan, having to fake like this wonderful relationship to get them back, watching like the stoning and like seeing the beheading in Saudi, and my son telling me that he didn't have to clean because he was a boy. It was a lot of different things that kind of led up to it, but actually like exiting and not believing in Islam anymore. The last straw and the end all be all was that Muhammad was a pedophile, and I knew it all those years, but I couldn't get past it. I couldn't get over it. I'm like, if I cannot be in a faith or with that they don't worship Muhammad, but he's the prophet. So
well, I mean, from the point of view of a person who's not religious and has never been religious, I consider not just Muhammad is worship, but he is revered, eccentrically worshipped. No, he is worship. To me, in my point of view, that's worship.
Okay.
I understand that for the level of difference that Muslims put between Allah and Muhammad, they say we don't worship Muhammad. To me, they do. I mean, I there's no person I hold up to and revere to the level that Muslims hold up Muhammad. Not even close, right? Like they literally model their lives after this person and try to emulate him in every way. I don't do that with anyone. I think I do think that's worshiping someone. Absolutely,
that is true. I debate Muslims so much that it's like it's like natural for me to say no, they don't worship Muhammad, because that's what I hear constantly when I'm debating them. So how this man had sex with a child. I don't, whatever their reasons are, the way they want to argue it away. I was a mom at that point, and I had a daughter, and they would talk about, they had already had her husband picked out for her in India, waiting for when she was old enough. Probably around 15 when they would send her over there to go get married. And I wasn't asked. I was told that's what was going to happen. That wasn't enough, but it was enough for me to be, I'm not going to subject my daughter to this life. And I don't think it's true. And it really was the pedophile thing that was the sticking point with me. That was the end of it. But it took a lot. It took a lot of heartache and seeing horrific shit for it to finally that be the final straw.
They essentially were they kidnapped, taken from you? Were they moved there like without your consent? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I came home from work and they were gone because I had asked for a divorce.
Oh, so you asked for a divorce, and because of that, it triggered them we have to get the kids out of the country. And then you kind of acted like you were getting back in the relationship to get to your kids again. Yeah.
And so I stayed.
And to do that, then you went to Pakistan?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's kind of jump over that for a second, because I feel like that's going to be a whole episode right there. Your experience in Pakistan. But so let's just jump ahead to the fact that you got them back. You go back to the U.S. after that?
Well, no, I went back to the UK for a while. And then I told him that we were going on holiday to the US, and we were going to be here for a couple months because my family had some sick family members that I wanted to go help take care of. That was my reason. So I packed up everything that I could in the 6 suitcases and came here. And once we got here, I told him that I wasn't coming back.
And then after that, you went to the U.S.?
Yeah, I was here. That's where I said that. Went from the UK to the US and told him that we weren't coming back. I offered him.
He became a Mormon again?
Yeah, I offered my ex. I told him I wanted a divorce, and I said, but you could still come here. And he didn't have an American visa or passport or anything. But I told him that I would sponsor him, and he could come and stay, like, with, we were still married, and so he could be near his kids. But he opted not to, which was the best thing he ever did. I went back to the Mormon church because it's all I knew, and I was a single mom, terrified.
But was there belief there? Did you believe again in Mormonism?
I don't know. Not really. I think deeply. I had been brainwashed as a child. So even after not really believing or going back to really believing, when I gave in my resignation, it physically affected me for days. I was shaky. I was terrified I was making a mistake. What if I was wrong? I don't know that I could have. I thought I was an atheist back then. I don't really think I was. I was still scared. I believed in it even when I was a full-fledged like Muslim, and I bought into that whole thing, hook, line, and sinker, and there was still a tiny part of me, I think, that still held the tiniest trace of belief in the Mormon faith as an insurance policy, I think, more than anything else. So leaving Islam and going back to the Mormon church more because of the community, and it's all I knew. And I needed some kind of support system. So I got heavily involved with the missionaries again. They started teaching my kids, but it wasn't very long after that.
Would you say at this point, like, your belief was at a very low level?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
And and how did you go from this to being like a hardcore atheist?
I know, I am a hardcore atheist, huh?
Yeah.
I had a friend, an ex, and he was raised Seventh-day Adventist, but his father was an atheist, and so he said to me, 5 minutes, I can make you into an atheist. And I was like, bullshit. I'll make you believe in God. What do you know, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, do you believe in pink unicorns? And I said, no. And he said, well, I believe in them. I said, that's stupid. That's silly. They don't exist. He goes, well, prove to me that they don't exist. I think they exist. I have a book here that says they exist. Prove to me they don't. And I started to think about it. And then he said, if you have free will, but there's a certain amount of people that are going to go to hell and heaven and all these things that I believed in, it's already preordained or predestined. God knows. So he's made you specifically to suffer for eternity. You were made to suffer. And he knew that going into it. And I was like, and it was almost instantaneous. It really was 5 minutes. There's something that clicked. I was like, oh my gosh, it's bullshit. It's all bullshit. Then I had this complete meltdown. Like, I broke down completely. I didn't know. I had a child that died, and I was counting on us being together after.
Was that your first? Was it? At what point did you have a child that?
I had a child with my first husband, the Mormon.
Okay.
Which is why we got married in the first place, and why I was 17.
Oh, because you got pregnant?
Yes.
Okay.
I had Brandon even after we split up, and I brought him with me with my to live with my ex, the Muslim. So he was part of our family initially, and he passed away. Mm-hmm. So I was counting on that, and so I kind of mourned my child twice, because it got me through there's no grief on earth. There's no pain I have ever felt than that of the pain after my child died. It was.
Would you say that religion helped you?
Yes.
Through that?
Mm-hmm. I probably would have tried to harm myself if I did not have religion, because I believed that he was up there waiting for me. I was going to be with him again someday. We were going to be a family. I would never have to be away from him again. And God was just keeping him safe for me.
So now that you don't believe that, does it just make it all the much worse?
No, actually, I'm more okay with it now. I believe that we come from stardust and we go back to stardust, and the fact that this is it. And I don't know for 100% sure that there's not other weird things going on after we die. But as far as I know, from all the evidence that I have been presented with, and it makes the most sense, this is my only trip. This is my one ride on this is my life. And so it matters more, the decisions I make, the love that I give, the legacy that I leave, and the relationships I have with people matter more. And so it didn't make it harder to say goodbye to the people that I've lost. I've lost a lot of loved ones since then. I'm out of 10 siblings, there's 3 of us left. It's and my parents are dead now, and so it's
I mean, there's another thing that goes on with with that feeling that you're gonna be with your child in the afterlife. I understand, like in your situation, how you say it helped me feel better because I knew I could be with my child later on, and that helped you through it. But there are some situations where that same belief can have the opposite, very negative, harmful effect. When parents, for example, Jehovah's Witnesses, I believe, don't accept blood transfusions, right? Even for their children, which I don't think should be legal at all. But for right now, in many parts of the world, including I believe in the U.S., if parents don't consent to the blood transfusion, they don't give it. And even if the child dies, so the parents know they're putting their child at risk, their life at risk. And I think in the back of their head, they think even if he dies, well, at least we'll be together in heaven. And so that same belief that made you feel better can also cause actual harm, real life harm.
Well, that's the inevitable road that religion takes.
Like, I see these news stories all the time about these very religious parents who will pray over their sick child who maybe just has pneumonia or some very treatable disease that they could just take their child to the hospital and with one shot get better, and they just keep the child there and pray over him, and then the child passes away. And some of these parents have gone to jail, very rightfully.
Okay, but if you really genuinely believe that it's a better life in heaven, like God's up there and you're going to go to paradise and it's amazing, and you really love your children, like you love your children more than anything else in the world, why wouldn't you want them? Because if they die as a child, they die innocent. Why wouldn't you want them to die? If you're guaranteeing that they're going to paradise and they're going to be happy forever and you're going to be able to join them, why wouldn't that be something to celebrate? I was taught as a Mormon, as I was being selfish for mourning my child because my child was happier, and I should be happy for my child. And eventually we'll get to be together again anyway. So I'm just being selfish by focusing on the here and now. And that's the dangerous part of it.
Yeah. Wouldn't you even say in that case that the religion actually paid like a negative role in not accepting the grief?
Yes.
Because they're kind of saying, like, not only should you not be, because I don't think the right way to deal with grief is to say to tell somebody you shouldn't even grieve.
But I did not get over his death. I don't know that I ever will, but I did not really grieve until I became an atheist. I did not really, that's when I said goodbye. That's when I said, I cherish every moment we had together. He enriched my life. I have a tattoo in his memory. I can still hear him talk. If I close my eyes, I still have blankets that have his smell on them. I can't take those memories with me. I can only have this impact right here and right now. And I am a better person for having him in my life.
Doesn't that also help you, like that acceptance and that grief that you knew more healthy went through now, and that acceptance that this is all you have and your child had a very limited amount of time? Don't you think that also helps you in the way you upbring your children now?
Oh yeah.
The appreciation you have, like, oh, actually my children don't have eternity after this life. They have actually just this life.
That's why I keep saying I'm a better mother. I'm a better I'm a better person. I'm a better friend. I'm more empathetic, more kind. The time with my kids is more precious.
Right.
And it seems weird to even think that not having a belief in a higher power or Sky Daddy would ensure that I become a better person. But absolutely. And my relationship with my kids, you've heard my relation, how we talk, even just in that video that I had up with my son. My kids are smart and they're inquisitive and they're curious, all the things I never was when I was growing up. I was comfortable with the fact the earth was 6,000 to 10,000 years old. I didn't like anything to do with science. I didn't care about planets and stuff. I come across intelligent now. I was not interested in learning or developing critical thinking skills at all. It bored me. So this life, the one that my kids have been exposed to, is very different than what they would have been exposed to had I raised them in a different, like in a more religious environment. So it's definitely it's improved all of our lives. And with grief and with curiosity, intelligence, just being a good person and making, I call it moral decisions, whatever you want to call it, just making those decisions, not necessarily always to be altruistic, but just because I want to be a good person, because I want to look in the mirror and say, I did the best I could and I'm not an asshole. And that's it. But that's what being an atheist has done for me and for my children. And I broke the chain and the cycle. And that's what was important to me.
How long ago would you say you had that epiphany moment speaking with your friend and you became an atheist and you went on this journey of being a white supremacist atheist?
Right.
Communist, Islamophobic, Republican.
It's been that's the worst. Probably it's been about 6 years.
About 6 years.
Yeah, 6 years. And
how would you say is like your life is different from back then, from when you were religious?
It's just better in every way. I have more freedom. I don't have guilt. I lived every day with terrible guilt about whatever, I never felt like I was good enough. I felt guilty pursuing even intellectual things because I was questioning, and questioning was bad again.
But now you seem like, it's bizarre. Like you seem to me like a person who's never was religious. Really?
That's how I come across. That's awesome.
So no. you really you became a fundamentalist atheist, basically.
I did. Well, that makes sense, right? Because I was kind of a fundamentalist when I was religious. So
you become fundamentalist to whatever you do.
Yeah, I do it right. Whatever it is, I got to do it. And I got to do it good.
You declare jihad on whatever religion you join.
Exactly.
You're basically an atheist jihadist. You're a Shiite.
I'll be the
atheist.
first one.
Twitter and Facebook is basically like the atheist caliphate. That's where we have come to congregate. The atheist community is Twitter and Facebook.
It's the Ummah.
It's the Ummah. The Ummah of atheism. Twitter. Oh, God.
Oh my gosh.
It's not as glamorous. We don't get on CNN as much.
No.
But
just as much drama. Just as much drama.
Just as much. That is true. If not more.
Yeah. What keeps things interesting, at least.
That's true. Okay, well let's end it here so we don't have a 3-hour video.
Okay.
But nice. Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you.